Alright, howdy folks, and welcome back to Gunner Heat PC, also known as GHPC. Today, I wanted to take a look at some big developments around Gunner Heat PC with a roadmap, a release date, and more to talk about. As always, if you want to check out the game or mod I'm talking about in the video, I'll have it linked at the top of the description. On that note, if you aren't sure what GHPC is, I've made quite an in-depth video detailing what it's all about, what vehicles, anyway, at the time were in the game. There's been more added since I made that video, what the vision of the developers is, and more, and I'll have that linked in the description as well. So the developers have actually given an early access release date for the game set for September 6th of this year. An early access copy will cost $29.99, though there will be a 10% discount for anyone buying the game in the first week. An interesting note is the fact that the developers have a huge Patreon page with almost 5,000 paying members, and anyone who has donated $25 or more through their Patreon before the 5th of September will also get a key to the early access. A little bit of mathing does mean that if you pay the developers $25 right now through Patreon, you basically get a 16% discount from their early access price, which might be a cheeky way to support the developers a little bit early, but get a larger discount in return. Now, for people who'd rather get their hands on the game and see if they like it before they buy it, then a free demo will be published to the Steam store sometime after the early access goes live. That said, after early access, a separate release candidate build will be released, so certain Patreons can help test changes, add-ons, and fixes before they get pushed to the live early access Steam build. So Gunner Heat PC has steadily improved ever since I first got my hands on it, but all that progress basically seems like a drop in the bucket compared to their published roadmap. This, as always, is their intended development order, but all items are subject to change. I'll be talking about each of their 9 points on the roadmap and then providing some of my own thoughts on them. So number 1 is a basic campaign which will have continuity between missions, allowing for saving and loading campaigns that are in progress, and allowing for the determining of spawning positions. Now obviously everyone understands what saving and loading means, and I'm really excited to see some continuity or persistence between missions. This is something I talked about to great lengths in my Regiment's RTS videos, where I really value the fact that a battlefield shows signs of previous battle, especially if that previous battle was actually what you inflicted. Now, whether this continuity in GHPC refers to the actual fact that you see that battlefield damage, or if it just reflects the ammo and damage you took in the last battle over to the next one, that obviously remains to be seen. At the starting position part, I'm not sure what that means, but potentially they could give you a map of the mission and then let you pick a predetermined spot on that map where you can spawn from. Number 2 is one I am super excited for. Not only will this one guarantee large explosions, there will be aircraft flying over, dropping ordnance, and hopefully using their cannons to make for some super epic strafing runs. The mission queue mechanic, I'm not really sure of what that means, so I'm going to refrain from commenting more on that, but I personally cannot wait to call in an A-10 or Su-25 gun run on enemy positions. Now, what type of aircraft will actually be able to call in and how powerful they'll be will be something we'll have to see down the line, though it appears the aircraft in the picture could be MiG-23s, and obviously in a scenario that takes place in a Cold War gone hot area in Central Europe, there's no way the A-10 and Su-25s would be missing. Fire missions from off-map artillery could be anything from on-demand smoke to HE frag, or even cluster artillery to destroy enemy armored formations. Like I said, extra explosions and jets flying low over the battlefield will just add to the overall Gunner Heat PC experience. Number 3 might be a slightly controversial one. At least one of my friends who saw this roadmap immediately mentioned he did not want infantry in his tank/IFV game. Personally, I'd like to see how the developers plan to implement them into the game in a way that will make them effective before I really want to comment on whether I like it or not. With troops being able to dismount, from APCs, infantry having their own behavior, as well as allowing them to garrison buildings and deploy heavy weapons. And when you're thinking heavy weapons, probably like 50 caliber machine guns, anti-tank guided missile launchers, or recoilless rifles. Having to dislodge dug-in infantry from a town could actually be a very interesting challenge. However, if you don't feel like doing it, you can use the air and artillery support from the previous one if you don't intend to deal with them directly at all. Having the ability to move infantry around, having to protect their transports from enemy attacks does sound interesting. With the BMP-1 and Bradley already being in the game, this could allow for some dangerous hunter-killer teams to exist and hunt down enemy or friendly tanks. Number 4 will see the addition of the Soviets as a faction, which should add some awesome new vehicles not yet seen with the East Germans. Now, besides vehicles, this will also come with a Russian voiceover, which, if they manage to get it half as good as the American one currently in the game, will add a lot to the immersion factor, as well as the ability to play as the Soviets in missions and potentially in campaigns. The fact that the Eastern Germans only got about 24 BMP-2s delivered to them probably has stopped the developers currently from including it in the game's vehicle roster, but now with the Soviets being added, a lot of new vehicles are basically being opened up to be added to the roster. BMP-2s, the T-64 and T-80 family of tanks, as well as a bunch of other more Soviet unique vehicles. Is there any vehicle you would really love to see from the Soviets? For me, I'd like to see some MTLBs with ATGM launchers, just to make a little interesting additional vehicle to be afraid of when you're driving your M60 throughout central Germany. Number 5 will add animations and postures for crews, like when they're manning the turret machine guns or when they're popping out of the commander's hatch to use binoculars to observe the battlefield, as well as the crew's workload will now be split into multiple stations. I'm not sure how it impacts the game currently, seeing as the player, as the commander, basically does everything in a tank other than manually reloading the gun. I don't know if this means that multiple players can crew one tank simultaneously, like you have a driver, a gunner, a commander. It would be really cool, though I'm sadly not sure that's what they mean here. Number 6 will be adding the West German Bundeswehr, as well as German voices and the ability to play them in campaigns and missions, though I'm wondering if those German voices will also work for the Eastern Germans. Some vehicles I can't wait to see here will be, of course, the Leopard 1 and 2 families of tanks, as well as the Marder APC, which is something I just have a huge love for. I love the way that Marder APC looks. Doing some mechanized attacks with West German platoons sounds like it's going to be right up my alley. I'm totally assuming that more factions like France or the UK aren't totally out of the picture, but that might be something for when they complete this roadmap for them to take a look at. Number 7 seems to talk all about destruction, with the ability to damage buildings as well as new pyrotechnic graphics such as explosions and fires. I honestly already find blowing turrets off of tanks very satisfying, but if they can make it look better, I'm all for it. Now, impact decals probably just refers to the impacts seen on vehicles after they've been hit. I haven't really gotten close enough to appreciate these, so I'm not sure, but next time I'll play, I'll see what they currently look like if they exist at all in the current build. Now, vegetation destruction would be nice. Interestingly enough, you could, for example, knock down a tree or multiple trees to get some makeshift concealment against vehicles that don't have a thermal. Or another question I had, what if your tank gets hit, it explodes in a huge fireball? Will the grass or vegetation near your vehicle get set on fire? We'll have to see. Number 8 will give us an expanded and more detailed campaign. This will have recon as well as logistics objectives. This might mean that you have to use scout vehicles like the BRDM or the Lukes for the West Germans to recon certain objectives to see what the enemy's defensive strength is there, or you have to protect friendly convoys heading over to your position with supplies, because if you do not protect them, you might risk not having ammo in the next engagement. I'm of course spitballing here, but that's what I think about when I'm reading these things anyway. A tactical advantage and favor mechanic sounds interesting, but also very vague. The favor mechanic could potentially be favor with command, And the more favor you have, the more you can upgrade, say, your own tank or your platoon. So say you have enough favor, you could upgrade your platoon of M60 tanks to M1 Abrams, etc. Now finally, a dynamic frontline could mean a lot of things, and when they finally overhaul their campaign mechanics, we'll see how that plays out. Finally, number 9 is their most anticipated update as far as I've seen around Discord and people's YouTube comments. It's multiplayer. So personally, I'd love to see multiple people being able to crew the same tank, but I assume here that they mean that multiple players can each take control of a separate vehicle and then either fight in PvP or in co-op. I'm hoping there'll be a co-op gameplay part and it'll hopefully be good, though there is a lot of potential for interesting PvP matches, and I'm not just talking about quick 5, 10, 15-minute Call of Duty style slug fights, I'm talking about ongoing PvP campaigns if the developers make that possible. For now, we'll have to see what the devs behind GHPC do with their roadmap. I'm really hoping they stick to it and consider adding more factions down the line who would have played a big role in Central Europe in the event of a Cold War gone hot. Are there any tanks or vehicles you'd really like to see that you don't think are going to be in the game, at least according to this current roadmap? Or are really excited for a certain Soviet or Western German tank? Let me know in the comments. For now, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.